Hey guys, Emily Muchanti here, and I have a video today for our reading interventionists. I had this conversation recently with another teacher about what to do when we have students who really struggle with oral reading fluency, in particular, prosody. And so I want to share some tips and ideas with you today to help you hone in on some of those really specific skills that you can help your students to develop to really become a wonderful oral reader. So first, make sure that you like, subscribe, share, leave me a comment, turn on the little bell icon, all the things that makes YouTube know that you are actually listening and we can reach more people. That helps me a great deal. Also, just FYI, our Reading Lab SOS website is now transitioning over to emilymuchanti.com. So in a few days, you can visit emilymuchanti.com. That's Emily, MUCCIANTI.com. And you will see all of the things that I offer to my viewers and listeners within the world of reading. So hope to see you over there. All right, so let's talk about reading fluency. Now, oral reading fluency contains a number of components. For a student to be fluent, we have to consider the student's reading rate, the student's accuracy, and their prosody, which is really the expression or the phrasing of our students. And sometimes we have students that really struggle with prosody. But before you dive into prosody, I want to make something really, really clear. Before students can take all of that cognitive brain energy that is available to focus on improving their prosody, they first have to have accuracy. So if the brain works in the way that there are only limited energy resources to focus on any one task, young readers in particular, or struggling readers, are taking all of that cognitive energy and they're really focusing on decoding the word. So there's not a lot left to sound good when you're reading. So I want to be really clear that this is not in place of decoding and phonics support. This is after a student has mastered that decoding. They have a high accuracy. The rate is adequate. In fact, the rate may even be a little bit high, but you don't see the prosody. So again, before anything can develop, we have to have our students have a strong high accuracy score, followed by a reading rate that is acceptable within that grade level. Then we can work on our prosody and help a student develop that. So now that we know what comes first, let's talk about prosody a little bit. Prosody is really the expression that a student is able to use and achieve when they are reading aloud. And it incorporates a couple of finer skills, and those are phrasing and expression. Good reading should sound like you're talking to somebody. It should never sound like you're speed reading, and it shouldn't sound like it's robotic reading. So what we want to do is help to develop prosody. And why is prosody important? Well, when we read with prosthetic features and expression, it actually helps in our comprehension because those meaningful phrases that are natural in our language help to link ideas together. So there is a connection back to comprehension. Let me tell you about a wonderful student I had a number of years. This little boy was a second grader, happened to be on the spectrum, had amazing accuracy, could decode anything, and had a really high reading rate. But he did not have prosody. So he would blast through all of the punctuation and every word was just strung together, sounding like almost like a ticker tape that just never stopped. And so something that I had to do with this student is, first of all, make sure that he understood what it was that I was looking at or looking for. So one thing that we did was a lot of echo reading. Now, echo reading is where I, as the teacher, model and the student repeats. And I want the echo reading to be done in phrases, and then I add in more of the sentence level so that the student can see the rise and fall. So that is one piece of this. Another thing that I did was I recorded the student reading. I just took my phone out, did an audio recording so that he could hear himself read the passage, and then I would read it and we would compare it and talk about that. So that was something else that I did. One other thing that I really had to hone in with this particular student is drawing his attention to the punctuation in the text. Now, he would just blast through every comma, every period. And so what I needed to do first was highlight all of those punctuation marks that affect how he should be reading. And we talked about how it's a code for reading and it tells us how our voice should sound. And so that's where we started. Then what I did is I would explain to him that when you see a period, you take a breath. When you see a comma, you take a short breath. Now, this student, it was I love this kid, let me tell you. So at first, when he would read, it might be, once upon a time, the dog went to the store. And I would get these big giant gasps from him. But that meant that he was actually starting to listen to and incorporate some of that training. Because let's not mix words here. We're trying to train our students to drawing their attention and using that punctuation in order to improve their phrasing and their prosody. It was a little mechanical and robotic at first, but through time, the reading became so much better, significantly better. So I want to share a document with you and kind of show you what this looks like. Now, there's something called phrase cued reading, and there are actually things that you can purchase where the phrases are already kind of pulled apart, but I really don't think that's necessary. I think we can do it simply with a highlighter or dry erase markers to help our students. So let me go ahead and share my screen and pull up what it is that I want to show you. Let's see, I got to make a little change. So here is an example of just a text that I am going to use, just a simplified kind of a text that I quickly created. And I want to have my student focus in first on the punctuation. So I'm going to go ahead and make this just a little bit bigger so that it's easy to see on the video, because we're going to focus in right here. And I'm going to draw your attention just as I would to my student. So the first thing that I would do is go through and we would talk about the different punctuation marks, and we might give them different colors. So our commas could be in yellow and our periods could be in red. So while I have red, let me go ahead and do a few of those. And this is kind of a full stop. It's a full breath. But then the commas are kind of those half stops so that our students understand. We want to draw their attention to this. These are meant to mimic natural speech. And so again, I want to show my student what the purpose is of those punctuation marks. And then we may start by reading and just starting some echo reading. And I would read, the student would repeat. Once upon a time, there were two friends named Kate and Pete. They loved to play outside and explore the world around them. Now, I might start there and having my student echo each sentence with me, but then I can add something, and this is where the phrase cued comes in, and we can use smiley faces underneath text if you had a lot of space. I'm going to just go ahead and change my tool just a little bit here and show you that what I'm looking at now is bringing their attention to some particular phrases. So here, once upon a time, and it has that half pause, is a phrase, and I want them to bring those words together. And then what I would do is continue, and I would show my student that there may not be a punctuation mark there, but we still have this natural phrasing. So we would decide, and let me be clear, is it absolutely important that you are phrasing at the exact right place? No, not really, because everybody would kind of lump this stuff together. So you can adjust this, and this is why I say that you can do this on the fly for free. So once upon a time, there were two friends named Kate and Pete. And let's say those were my three. And obviously I would have a little bit of a better loop so that you could see the definition. And then I would show my student through a model, and I would model what I'm doing, having them listen, and I would record it on my phone. Once upon a time, there were two friends named Kate and Pete. And we would pause here. And I might want to do a few sentences because my student in particular was blasting through periods, and I needed him to take a pause. I needed to make that pretty clear. So I would come back to my phrasing and add a few more. They love to play outside and explore the world around them. Now, like I said, you might phrase it a little bit differently. That's okay. The goal is that we're showing students literally kind of the rise and the fall of the sound in our voice. And then I would continue. One day, they found a tree with a huge hole in it. They decided to take a peek inside, and see what was there. Okay, now this is kind of messy, I get it, but you get the idea. I am showing them on text. Now I am going to model and read it with my student as I'm swiping up. Once upon a time, there were two friends named Kate and Pete. Have them echo. They love to play outside and explore the world around them. Echo again. One day, they found a tree with a huge hole in it. Have them echo. They decided to take a peek inside and see what was there. So I would be echo reading this with my student. And then I would have him read it alone as I provide corrective feedback. And so this particular student, this is what it kind of sounded like. Once upon a time, there were two friends named Kate and Pete. They loved to play outside and explore the world around them. So then what I had to do, first of all, it was a great start because he was paying attention to what it was that was on the page. Then what we did is I recorded him. And then we talked about those breaths, and we talked about, how do I sound? Do you hear me take the breath? We can take a breath very quietly. It doesn't need to be a long breath. And we would compare how he's reading with the recordings. And then we would kind of do some meta-analysis where he really gets to take his own reading and evaluate it. And then I would ask him, do you want to try it again? And, we would go until he was kind of done. Now, again, I have found in my experience, some students do struggle with prosody in this way. Go ahead, stop sharing. And in particular, my students that I've worked with that have been on the spectrum, they don't hear some of those nuances in the language. This is also why inferences can be a little bit challenging for them. Anything that's a little subjective, not really concrete. So by showing them that punctuation has a concrete meaning and asking them to practice for that, we can help them to develop that prosody. So phrase cued reading, in addition to echo reading, and recording that student so that they can get some reflective feedback and kind of some meta-analysis really of what they're doing, or metacognition, I guess is the better word, attacking that metacognition. But really what will happen here is we can help the student to sound more natural when they're reading. And as they become, as they're able to sound more natural, the goal is that some of those nuances in the comprehension will be able to start to connect together. Now, this is also something that you would really do one-on-one with a student, because it's a lot of really finer points of prosody. And don't forget, it's not where we start with fluency. We have to start with accuracy in our fluency and reading rate. But once those two pieces are in place and you're noticing that the student is still sounding very mechanical or robotic or too fast, this is a great way to come in and help that student draw their attention to prosody. I hope that was helpful. I would love to hear what you do when you have similar situations. Drop a comment below and share it with us. Let's see what else is going on out there. This is just one idea. Don't forget, if you're interested in connecting with me, you can now go to emilymuchanti.com. You can see me there with the New Teacher Success Network, and you can also see me there with the intervention consulting that I do and coaching. So I would love to connect with you. And thank you for listening. As always, thank you for what you do. Bye.